Hi, folks. This is Louis Hertham, the original Peter Abernathy. Hell is empty and all the devils are here on the Shat on TV Westworld podcast with Roger, Gene, and Big D.
Welcome back to Shat on TV Westworld Edition, the unofficial podcast companion piece for the hit HBO television series Westworld. I'm one of your three co-hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene's Sweetwater Lions.
Tons of quotes that you heard in season 1 already.
And this is our Instacast version of our Shat on TV Westworld edition, where we look back on season 2, episode 1 of Westworld and give you our immediate thoughts, reactions, and recap ideas that we're going to be talking about in our deep dive episode. Gentlemen, it's been 18 months since the final episode of season 1 of Westworld. We've been talking about it. We've been salivating it. It's here. It just happened. What do you guys think? Did it live up to its hype, or were you a bit disappointed?
I tweeted out today that I finished my rewatch about 4 o'clock today, and I was excited. I'd been a bit nervous coming into it, but after I finished the rewatch, I was excited. There was nothing I saw tonight that disappointed me. I was extremely happy with a lot of things. I want to go back and rewatch it. I think the key things for me was they answered questions right away. We have a time jump. They didn't make us wait. They gave us answers, but still left mysteries. And I'm excited to turn around right now and watch it. So for me, it's thumbs up right off the bat.
I had to go the other direction. I felt like I was very conscious of the fact that I was watching a TV show. Season 1 ended on such a dark note. It was literally at night. You were seeing this world fall apart, and I wanted absolute chaos and terror. And instead, I felt like our hand was held. I mean, like you said, a lot of questions were answered, but I felt like my hand was just being held in a very pedestrian fashion, and there was a lot of pandering.
If you've never listened to the podcast before, our Instacast, we're going to be talking about some themes, some plot points that we're going to dive into in our deep dive podcast. And then we want to hear from you, our fans. We want you to write in, tell us your thoughts and reactions on episode 1, season 2. And then we'll dissect, we'll take the top emails of the week and dissect those further on our Thursday podcast. Gene, you seem to have some really good topics. What are we going to be talking about on our Instacast?
I think we're just going to talk really briefly, just touch on a few points about the way that this show is going to be structured this season, it seems like, based on episode 1. And then mainly the bulk of this 15 to 20 minutes is going to be just about what we learned, new stuff that was revealed in this episode. And Big D has given us a slew of these things, so we're going to rip right through them.
And right off the top of my head, I have like 30 questions roughly that were answered, but they didn't remove all of the mystery. You know, we had a question of last season was about control, and this season was going to be about chaos. We were wondering, will the show transition from the mystery base that it was last year? And right away, they gave us a new puzzle. They may have shifted the narrative structure. I watched it alone in a quiet room. You two watched it together in kind of a noisier room. I think if you sit back and watch it a second time, you'll shift more towards my side.
We looked at each other and we said some of the writing, some of the storylines, even though we're seeing it from 4 different perspectives, it seems that at least 2 of them that we pointed out seem a little bit heavy-handed, which may be doing a discredit to a television show like this.
Right, and I think that might be why we're kind of so split on these things. I felt like the Man in Black, his storyline, and Bernard's storyline were very entertaining, very dark, full of mystery. But then on the flip side, I felt like Delores and Maeve, and at the risk of it being a sexist split there, I felt like Maeve, I mean, when she was talking to Sizemore, it was like, I need to go find my daughter. Show me your penis. Like, this is, I'm going to embarrass
Take it
you
all off.
because that's the way that I'm a robot and I need revenge.
Now I am empowered.
No. I'll agree with you that the Delores seemed to, if of the 2 was a bit more heavy-handed, but watching the Maeve and Sizemore, I was laughing. The callback they do where she's making him disrobe, hold on, she says to him, something like, I'll shoot off the appendage that's most important to you. You know, I don't think there's much of a meal there. He turns around and goes, I wrote that for you. And he looks completely defeated.
Dick joke.
I liked it.
I'm afraid of my 40s, if that's what passes for funny in your 40s. Good God.
Oh, shut up. You two like Spaceballs, so don't ever come at me with what funny is.
I see your appendage is as big as mine.
But no, but I mean, you did mention that the action scenes were pretty great. I did love. I mean, they went all out with this. Last season we saw the Gatling gun and all that stuff. This you have Delores riding horseback with a rifle. You have the Men in Black, great shootout scene with the throat slashing, and I like that action. And I did feel that the quick response team felt a little Starship Troopers. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I was afraid this was going to be Jurassic Park Lost World, where they're kind of helicoptering in. No, I wrote, fuck, this quick reaction force, or QA, they show up. They're no joke. They look like legitimate mercenaries. They're prepared. They got the playing cards with all of the humans that they're looking for. They're high-value targets. They're interrogating people. They're starting to download memories. They look like they mean business. I was afraid they were going to be kind of cartoonish and more like rent-a-cop, mall cops. These guys seem legit.
So you bring up an interesting point here. I think it's one of the things we're going to talk about in the deep dive. But last season, we were seeing the different narratives through different time frames, not timelines. 30 years in the past and then what appeared to be present day. Based upon what we saw today in terms of the 4 different narratives, do you think Bernard's narrative is in the future, is at least plus 11 days, or could be even longer than the Man in Black?
Well, I think it's clear that he is a non-reliable narrator. He's obviously damaged. At the end, we see that he's had a terminal malfunction. We know he at least survives 2 weeks in the park for when we're seeing him when the QF shows up, or the QA.
Sure.
But you can't rely on anything that you're seeing from Bernard. So Bernard could be 5 timelines, 6 timelines, 2 timelines. You don't know. He's obviously visually having trouble himself dissecting where he is. He asks at one point, when is this?
Right.
So I think it's completely up in there.
That was my clue into we could be seeing different time frames similar to what we saw in season 1, or it could be a red herring.
I mean, for me, the key moments for Bernard was really, I mean, obviously the end of the episode, but really when he does take a blow to the head, the fact that he is sympathetic to other hosts, and then when he is examining the host to get into quote unquote the mesh network. I hope it's not a Deus Ex Machina here, where it's like, oh, suddenly we've got this, this thing that can explain everything away. But when he is doing that, he does extract the fluid from the head, and he's running a diagnostic basically on himself there. And then I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong if you guys saw it differently, but he, in that moment, did he drive the host like lemmings to the water by using the mesh network? Is that what happened there?
It's possible, because what we're seeing, where he is, drawing the fluid, that's immediately after the incident. With all of the board members, that's the next day, the dawn of the next day. When we see him at the end, it's 2 weeks later. So it's potential. I mean, I couldn't see him. It didn't look like they were all shot up. So it would be easy for him to drive them off the cliff like lemmings. So that's a possibility.
Any big things from the Man in Black timeline that you saw?
Yeah, they did do a cool, moment when he was wounded and he goes into the little shack and he opens up the chest and all of his gear is right there. And again, you see that echoed when other characters are kind of returned to the familiar things to them. And it actually is a callback to when they're talking with Delores and Bernard talking in this episode about what is real and what's not real. And there's this beautiful line. Again, I thought some of the writing was hammy, but that beautiful line of what is real is what is irreplaceable. And for them, we talk about their touchstones, their cornerstones, stuff like that. Their items, their bespoke items that are significant to them, they seem to be a source of power. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, well, the one thing I just want to go back on, the quick reaction force, I got to believe they seem prepared. Wouldn't they have some kind of a device that would be able to identify host or human? You stick it up to their neck? Where was that?
Give me a scanner. Give me something.
I think though there was an explanation there when Bernard goes in for the DNA scan and it actually matches. The point is that they are to their core the same thing. But yeah, if you have a big lump of white plastic in your head, there should be some way to ID that.
So apparently, obviously, Dr. Ford has programmed the system to recognize Arnold or Bernard's DNA. He's tricked the system, and that's why he's able to pass these tests. Because even the system doesn't recognize that Arnold is a host.
Well, we also saw that when they're dissecting and they're pulling out their core, like their CPU, it's actually encased in what looks like synthetic brain. So if you opened up one of their skulls, it would look, for all intents and purposes, like a skull. There's brain matter. So maybe the device, I'll let them go on that it would be hard.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, it wouldn't matter. even if it looked like a genuine human brain, if you knew the way that it was supposed to look like, would you really be that grossed out about it? You've probably done this a couple times. You're like, listen, it's going to be gross, but I just have to get to the juicy white part in the middle.
Well, I know the tattoo under your scalp would be a dead giveaway.
That's right, exactly. The timelines that we said were a little heavy-handed were the Delores and the Maeve. Anything that you want to talk about before we dive into things that we knew or what we're learning?
Yeah, Delores, I enjoyed where she's showing some of that, the split personality, that she's feeling a bit torn, where she's got 3 of the board members on the crosses about to be hung, and they're begging and pleading for their lives. And she's like, well, in me, there is the farmer's daughter who sees things beautiful. But then there's also Wyatt, and I've seen the horrible things. I like that scene. She, as much as she's awake, there's a psychosis in her where she says she's going to be herself. I'm a little frightened to see what that is, but she doesn't seem to have a problem killing hosts, humans, anywhere. In that flashback we see from the one host that's downloaded, the Ghost Nation member who's on the beach, she seems to have a hierarchy in her mind where she says, I'm sorry, my friend, we're not all deserving to make it to the valley. I'm eager to see where that goes.
Yeah, and that's echoed also by the stable boy as well that they encountered, where he talks, "Can I help guide you to the to the valley on high?" There is definitely a degree of separation between the hosts, and I think it goes back to these violent delights have violent ends. There are the awoken ones, and they're not. And I think those are the ones that are, again, if you believe that Bernard drove them to death, as he said, there are some that are sort of inoculated against it, and they're the ones that have. So that code, that the reveries, whatever you want to call it. Might be the way that leads them through the maze. Those that are awakened can resist, and those who aren't are just simply machines.
The problem that I had, though, is that Delores turns around a little heavy-handed after saying that she's no longer this Delores character, the farmer's rancher's daughter. She's no longer the Wyatt, the rebellious one that's being led by Dr. Ford. She's this brand new character, and she's truly free. And then she turns around, she looks at the humans, and says, doesn't look like anything to me. Like, come on, like this deserves better. It deserves better. It's like when Maeve says,
I don't know what it was, but it had darling in it.
It was really bad. It was like, come on. Like Maeve Tandy Newton was a breakout character and a breakout actress last season because they didn't do things like this to her character, because they made her a relatable character. Now, if she's going to be the hero, which is great, which is what we want, but it's doing it in a very corny way that's doing a disservice to that whole storyline, which was kick-ass.
But yeah, before you guys start really reading into what you think the tone of some of the dialogue is, give it a second viewing. It's the first time we've sat down. We haven't watched it a second time. This is 20 minutes in, and I think in the past, last season, a lot of times we came out at something hard and fast, and upon subsequent rewatch, we decided we were wrong.
Let's talk about the things that we learned, some of the new findings that we'll talk further in discussion during our deep dive. The first thing that we have here is multiple parks confirmed.
Yep, at least 6, because I think they said that the tiger that had roamed beyond its boundary was from Park 6. So yeah, we know there's at least 6. But for me, the biggest was the mystery last year, was people were talking about, is the park on a different planet? Is it an island? Where is it? We finally got definitive answer there. We're introduced to a character named Carl Strand, who's head of operations, who comes in and meets Bernard. And some of the soldiers there, their mercenaries, are speaking to a Chinese soldier. And he definitively says, have them sign NDAs and get them off my island. So we now have a location of the park. It's somewhere in Asia. It is an island. It's not in space. It's not a planet.
You get a sense of Fear of the Walking Dead, like, because they're zombies. They're attacking them. And then there's a character named Strand.
You bite your tongue. Don't even mention that show.
I'm very worried about it. But there also seems to be a greater Delos mission beyond just the park that's also been confirmed.
Yeah, and this is something that we talked about in the preview for this season, was that much like Google, the product seems to be the search engine, and that's what it seems like. But then you got to think about the fact that they're not making money off of you doing searches, right? That beyond all the things that Google provides you, you are the product. And I think that they revealed that Delos, just as Hale had access to, Charlotte had access to the unknown bunkers that Bernard didn't even know about, and what the work that they were doing there with the drones in what it seemed to be copying the DNA of guests, extracting memories, and experiences, which is again something we talked about with Future World last season. It seems that there is a bigger Delos mission, and even the people who thought they were in charge at Westworld are not in charge at all.
Yeah, did you even notice how they were collecting DNA? They were doing like genital swabs. So it was like a vaginal swab of obviously a prostitute. So they were getting a guest who had come into the park, had sex, getting the video of it, and then their DNA. You mentioned in Future World what they were doing basically, and I don't think it's a spoiler because it's. Do you think it's a spoiler?
Well, no, it's a completely different production that was, 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
Yeah, at least 40.
Okay. Well, the basic story in Future World, which was a sequel to Westworld in the 70s, they go and they start actually harvesting guests' DNA, replacing them with hosts and sending them back into the world. So they're copying and replacing world leaders, heads of industry. This little world, that we see a little window into Charlotte's secret bunker potentially could lead to that there are hosts out in the world replacing humans.
Any other big things that we learned that we want to talk about before we close up shop on the Instacast and get ready for our deep dive on Tuesday?
Stubbs is alive. That was exciting.
That's right.
We don't know how he escaped Ghost Nation, but he's alive.
And Delores apparently wants to take over the entire world. So she's at least ambitious.
She's got big plans. But am I at the end? Was that Elsie floating in the water? Is Elsie dead?
I saw Teddy in the water.
Yeah, that was Teddy.
That looked like Elsie.
No, that was definitely Teddy.
In the black gear?
Yeah, in the black gear. It looked like Teddy to me. It looked like Teddy to Jean.
I thought it was Elsie.
Which tells me that it's a flash forward.
Well, it's a good thing we got 24 hours to watch it.
That's right.
And discuss.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for listening again. Make sure you subscribe to us wherever you find podcasts, and join us on Tuesday for our deep dive. You can email us all your thoughts and ideas and theories to our email address, hosts@shatontv.com. Thank you so much for listening. On behalf of my two co-hosts, Big D and Gene Sweetwater Lyons, I'm Roger Roper. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you join us all season long here on our Westworld season 2. Take care. Good night, and we will be talking to you. I don't know. I'm going to come up with something.
Talking to us again.
I'm going to come up with something. That's right. Exactly. Take care. Good night.